Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday class that shall not be named. As always, we're wondering if we've started on YouTube yet, so I say the introduction always at least twice. Welcome to the Wednesday class that shall not be named. Looking forward to studying with everybody today. I'm going to send the YouTube link out because you can't get the YouTube link until we start. So I send it to one person just to make sure he has it.
Okay, we're back.
Good morning to everybody. Welcome to all the people who are on Zoom with us. So welcome to David and Eva and Arlene and Ron. I know a couple people are not able to join us, including Michael and Lou and a couple others. Welcome to David, who's back in Savannah. So welcome back after spending a lot of time, obviously, in England, where our mother congregation is. Did you ever go to Bevis Marks, by the way, David?
Still haven't. I used to be associated with Finchley Reformed Synagogue in the north of London, but I've got to go to Bevis Marks at some point.
Yeah, Bevis Marks is our mother congregation. Is still Sephardic. We've had people visit here from there.
I've seen it from a distance. It looks like a beautiful place.
Coincidentally, it was one of the few synagogues I visited. I've only been to England twice, but one of the times, one was just for a couple of days, but we had to see some synagogues. That was one of them. I remember being quite beautiful. And it's still the oldest synagogue in England, although I thought it had been started right after Oliver Cromwell. When Oliver Cromwell took over, synagogue was started, but that one doesn't exist anymore. Those ones closed, I guess, after he died. There was still some kerfuffle with the synagogues. So it's not that old, but I think it's definitely started in the late 17th or early 18th centuries. So we're going to study today, of course, Pirkei Avot, which we started last time. Well, we went through it step by step. I think we're going to do a little different today as we kind of explore probably the most famous section of the Talmud. And there's a lot of sections of the Talmud. It's actually in the Mishnah, the first section of the Talmud. So the Mishnah is written. It's 6 books. They take the first part of the Mishnah, they put it on a page, and they write more commentary. That's called the Gemara. The second part of the Talmud, they take the next part of the Mishnah, put it commentary. So there's lots of commentary. When it comes to the Pirkei Avot, which again is in Nezachim, which is the section of the Talmud that deals with damages, kind of law stuff, law issues. There's no Gemara, so there's no additional stuff on Pirkei Avot, but it is so popular, as we know, that it's become really part of the vernacular of society. So instead of going step by step, we may do a little bit of that. We're going to look at some of the most popular pieces from Pirkei Avot. So welcome to Karen, who's joining us. Now, as to Pirkei Avot, it's often translated as Ethics of the Fathers, but there's a lot of translation discussions. Is it ethics, or should it be chapters of the Fathers? Because Pirkei can be chapters. Avot can be fathers, but it's not always designated fathers. Some say its designation can be rabbis or sages, but that may be anachronistic with this. It could be that Avot in this case means categories or fundamentals or principles. So it could be chapters of fundamental principles, or chapters of principles, or chapters of categories. It could be that it was given the name Pirkei Avot to make it more confusing, or to give us more options, because these two words are used in various ways in different time periods. So we don't know actually what the original translation meant. It's usually translated Ethics of the Fathers, but that could be wrong or it could be right. So by saying that, we are definitely in the possible right category, but nobody knows exactly. So we'll say ethics of the fathers. If you say chapter of the fathers at work, ethics of fundamental principles, chapters of fundamental principles, chapters of principles, these are all fine. So in Pirkei Avot, there are 6 chapters, although originally there's probably 5. The 6th one was probably added later. As we mentioned last week, sometimes people read a chapter of Pirkei Avot on the Saturdays in between Passover and Shavuos, and there's 6 Saturdays usually. So that means they needed 6 chapters. So the 6th chapter may have been added much later. When you look at the principles of Pirkei Avot, you realize something essential, and that is, even though it is in the Talmud, it is not filled with halakha. It's not filled with law. These are not binding laws. Binding laws are much more specific. These are, as we say, principles, ideas of how you should live your life. It is connected in some ways to what we talk about in Ecclesiastes, who goes around spouting wisdom, but also can be talking about some negative things. It's a little bit connected to Proverbs, another of the books of wisdom, maybe some books in the Apocrypha. So it is just basically statements throughout, and each verse is basically a different statement. So the verses are not necessarily connected, even though they can be, but each verse can be taken alone, which is very rare in the Talmud. Usually they're all connected, but in this case it's verse 1 is this, verse 2 is this, verse 3 is this, and that's just how it goes throughout, which is very rare. Now, as we know, we talked about how it is divided. The first 2 chapters make it very obvious that we're talking about passing down of Torah and the oral law from Moses all the way down to around the year 200. So that's the dates we're talking about for this. So from the time Moses received the Torah at Sinai, these things have been passed down through the generations all the way to Yehuda HaNasi, who is the one who brought together the Mishnah itself, 200 to 220. So those first 2 chapters we see an order of the passing, and each rabbi is usually referenced as this rabbi said in the name of another rabbi, and that rabbi came before him. So it's a way of connecting to the past. Most of the sayings, though, are from rabbis from around 200 BCE to 200 CE. So from Simon the Just, 200 BCE, this is to Yehuda HaNasi, 200 CE. He's a little easier to label because we have a lot about him, so we know the time period he was living in Israel. These are sayings of rabbis who are living mostly in Israel. And so the first 2 chapters are just, here are sayings of rabbis in order from one time period to the next. First giving the generalities, Moses to the elders, Moses to Joshua, the elders, the prophets, and then to the Great Assembly. And then we start talking about particular rabbis like Simon the Just, who I mentioned, 200 BCE. They don't mention the priests, which is, it's not like from Moses to the priest, to the Kohanim. Why? Because the priest and the rabbis were competitors. From 200 BCE to 100 CE, the rabbis and the priests were competitors. The priests wanted to keep sacrifice, and that was the center of worship. The rabbis wanted to do study and prayer. We know who wins. The rabbis win. So later generations will start giving more credit to the priest, but we're still in that period where the competition is still in memory. And so we're kind of trying to take the priests out of the game. And then hundreds of years later, after the rabbis have won and have control of Judaism, I don't mean control like, dictatorship, but like religious control, philosophical control, then you'll see them start to say nice things about the Kohanim a little bit more. But at this point, we're just talking. There may be a reference to Aaron. I don't actually think there's even a reference to Aaron there. No, I think they skipped the Kohanim completely. So the first two chapters are chronological wisdom. The 3 and 4 are continue these line by line pieces of wisdom, but it's not in the same order. Chapter 5 is very strange in some ways because you have pieces of wisdom, but there's no reference to who the rabbis are, who said them. And then chapter 6 kind of was added later, and this is more just kind of like a completion saying this stuff is really good. I mean, the Torah is amazing. So this is how Pirkei Avot. So there's 6 chapters, very organized. Each verse is a piece of wisdom. Some of them are very famous. Some of them are not. Some of them are hard to read because, again, anachronistically, the way they look at women, the way they do certain things is very difficult for us in our modern world. But if we go back 2,000 years, they were generally ahead of the game and how the other people were treated, minorities were treated, women were treated, but certainly they hadn't got to the level of what we would call equality we have today, even though we still have a way to go today. So any questions or thoughts on Pirkei Avot? Last time we went step by step for the couple of chapters. Now I'm going to pick out some of the more famous sayings, and some of them not as famous to us, but are very memorable in the Jewish world. And again, of course, the most famous sayings are super famous, and we know about them all the time. So now, when did this become popular? That is also debate, but we know by the 9th and 10th century, the Gaonim, those were kind of the leading religious and in many ways secular leaders of the Jewish world living in Persia, were very supportive of Saadia Gaon, one of the most important Jews in history. The prayer book, for instance, a lot of the laws that have been cemented were done during his period of his family, and they were very enticed by the Pirkei Avot. They may have even been ones that added the 6th one. And they were the ones who may have started reading the chapters between Passover and Shavuos. We don't know. They also may have been reading it between Passover going all the way to Rosh Hashanah and just rereading the cycles. So they may have done it even more. But we know by that period, 9th, 10th century, Pirkei Avot is already very popular. So some of the ones that we have heard of, and one of the most famous ones, of course, is from chapter 1, the world stands on 3 things: on Torah, on good works, and kindness to others. Now, good works, or avodah, really means service to God, like prayer, basically. So the world stands on 3 things: Torah, prayer, being kind, which is the basis of Judaism itself. What do I mean? Torah, prayer, kindness. These are the 3 most important attributes of one. How do we connect with God? We connect with God in 3 ways: prayer, study, being a good person. And so this is where we find this so aptly written, that it is used in the service. It's used al ha-Torah, ve'al ha-avodah, ve'al gemilut chasadim. We saying it as we're taking out the Torah, putting it back sometimes. So This comes directly not from the Bible, but from the Mishnah. And it's probably one of the most important pieces in there. And any thoughts on that, by the way? I think we all know it. We've heard it sung a lot better than I could sing it. But often we see things in our service and we don't realize where they come from or how old they are. And sometimes we attribute it to the Torah. This is not in the Torah. It's not as old as the Torah or the Bible. It's written a couple hundred and something years after the Bible has been codified. We don't know when this was said. We don't know when the original person said, Avodah, Al-HaTorah ve'Avodah ve'Gemilut Chasadim. We know when it was written down around 200. But so, and then shortly after, probably by the Gaonim, put into the service. That's kind of cool. From the first chapter, your house should be wide open and you should treat the poor as members of your household. There's also a beautiful saying which teaches us how to treat others. Now, does it say you should invite them to live in your house? Not exactly. It's more of the idea of how you treat people, as opposed to, does it mean to let somebody who you don't know into your house to live there if you have kids? Meet every person with graciousness, from chapter 1. One of the more difficult aspects of the world today because of the internet. Graciousness is usually reserved for people we know or people who have very similar beliefs or maybe famous athletes. But what this is telling us is you treat everyone graciously, no matter who it is, no matter how they look at the world, no matter what type of religion they are. And it's a very similar viewpoint in Islam. So in Islam, like in Judaism, going back to the Torah, somebody comes to your tent, you're supposed to take care of them for at least a couple of days. I'm sorry, somebody said something?
No, I said welcome them.
Welcome them for at least, some would say 3 days. And this is also even probably more prominent in some ways in Islam, because somebody comes to your tent, you welcome them 3 days or whatever, even if they're an enemy. Why is it even more so important in Islam? Because Islam is a religion that was completely formed in the desert. That means if somebody is at your place, there's probably not a lot of other places to get food and water. And so they were probably much more in need. So Islam, like Judaism, has a lot of these still within their belief system. From chapter 2, he, Yochanan ben Zakkai, said to his disciples, go and see what is the right way that a man should seek for himself. Rabbi Eliezer said, a good eye. Rabbi Yoshua said, a good friend. Rabbi Yossi HaKohen said, a good neighbor. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel said, one who sees consequences. Rabbi Elazar said, a good heart. He, Yochanan, said to them, I prefer the words of Elazar ben Arach to yours, because his words include yours as well. So basically, what he is saying is he believes all of these are good. What should you seek for yourself? A good discernible eye, a friend, a neighbor, somebody who understands consequences, somebody with a good heart. These are all aspects. So although it seems like he would pick one, he picked kind of the guy who had connected to all of them. So now, what is the right path for a person to choose? Whatever is honorable to himself and honorable in the eyes of others. So this is an essential piece as well. why is this essential? Because we all see the world from a particular viewpoint, our viewpoint. And who's the hero in our story? We are. We see the world from our viewpoint. So, but not everybody does. And we have to understand that we have to not find a pathway that's only what we consider honorable, but what other people do as well. So we get multiple viewpoints to ensure doing the right thing, because maybe I think I'm doing the right thing, but I'm not seeing it from a different person's perspective. I can only see it from mine. And if I only see it from my perspective, I could be doing the opposite of what's honorable. And so I think that is something that, again, continues to this day. We'll find a lot of the most famous passages from this occur in the first two chapters. So from chapter 2 as well, let your friend's honor be as dear to you as your own. And welcome to Arnold, who's joining us. Let your friend's honor be as dear to you as your own. So what does that think? What do you think about that one? What does that mean to you?
Maybe respecting others and not putting yourself first.
Not putting yourself first.
Maybe giving others, sharing the limelight with others.
Sharing the limelight, that's a good one. Making sure if you're working someone or you have employees that they get the limelight.
Or, give credit where it's due. Yeah.
Give credit where it's due. I think all those are right. I think it's also, again, we worry a lot about ourselves. And if we worry about others, that teaches us what kind of people we are. So, like when we're using somebody else's stuff, we may be less careful with somebody else's stuff. Ron?
Yeah, I'm also thinking about respecting others for who they are. In other words, some people may not like a person because of a certain trait that they have. Others, and I feel that if you like a person, you overlook certain traits that they may have that you don't particularly agree with.
That's a great idea. And also, when you look at somebody else and we don't like some of the things we do, we look from the outside, we'll see that we do the same. We get upset when somebody cuts us off in traffic or is driving too fast, but yet if we're in a hurry, we do the same thing. And again, the one I was talking about, property, is one of the next ones. Let your friend's money be as dear to you as your own. And that is important, because whether we're borrowing something or investing for someone, if we care for somebody as they're like us, then we're going to really do more for them than we have to. This is especially important for people who invest money for us or partners. Now, the most famous piece, again, we talked a little bit last time, but we'll talk a little bit more now, is attributed, of course, to Hillel. And we mentioned last time, but it's so important. If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?
When?
And we talked about this last time, and this is a difficult passage for people for different reasons. There are some people who care only for themselves, and they will put themselves above everybody else no matter what. And that is a serious problem. We see that throughout time, and just regular people, leaders, that they care about themselves, put themselves about, they'll let other people fall through the cracks without any guilt at all, sometimes even relishing it. But on the other side of the coin, we have people who only care about others and are very self-sacrificing. But what does the Mishnah teach us? you should not be all about yourself, but you should not be all about just others. There's got to be a balance. There are people who are so self-sacrificing that they will give away all their money. Or they're so nice that they never fend for themselves and they're always taken advantage of. And they're so nice or so giving that they put their own health at risk. They don't have any enjoyment, or they don't have time to find personal relationships because they're always giving of themselves. So it's a balance. You don't want to be too self-sacrificing, and you don't want to be too selfish. But you got to be a little selfish sometimes, and you got to be a lot self-sacrificing sometimes as well. And this is the balance. This is where we see, as we mentioned, the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, the good and evil inclination. You need both. You know, you have to be a little selfish sometimes, and keeps, put monies in the savings for retirement. And don't give all of your time to those in need, and make sure you work out. Volunteer a lot, but don't volunteer so much that you're not having a little enjoyment in life. It's a balance, and some people go one way and some people go the other too far. And that's what I like about, one of the things I like about Judaism. Judaism doesn't say donate all your money to charity. Judaism says donate an amount that you can afford, but don't do it to the point where you really hurt yourself. And obviously, if not now, when, has become a staple in society where procrastination is such an incredibly consistent thing in our world. I don't want to brag, but I'm really good at it. And I'm basically a professional. If procrastination was a sport, I would be a Hall of Fame athlete. And so a little procrastination, obviously, you have to have, but you got to be a little careful. And this has to do a lot with the idea of what we think and what we do. So action is more important than thought in Judaism, generally speaking. I can think about giving back all the time, and I'm thinking and thinking about it. Well, I'm going to do this, and I'm a good person. I'm going to do that. But if I procrastinate and don't do it, it doesn't matter what I'm thinking. Or someone who is not as nice a person, but I better donate money. I donate money. I got to go give up time, and it looks good. And they're doing it. They're still better people than those of us who are thinking about it that aren't actually doing anything about it. So that passage of stealth is probably the most. What do you guys think? Is that the most famous one from this? Probably everybody's heard about it.
For me, I think it is. Stuart actually has a T-shirt with that quote on it. In fact, he was wearing it yesterday. Do you know who Mordecai Rosenstein, the artist? Have you ever met? Oh, he's apparently he passed away recently, but he did all these wonderful sayings from Pirkei Avot and Talmud, and wove them in fact, even blessings like the Shabbat blessings, and he wove them into these art pieces. And
that's great.
So we bought a couple of his at a biennial, and he gave Stuart that T-shirt. So I see it all the time. But yeah, he had been wearing it yesterday, and I was thinking,
one day off from Kismet, from serendipity.
If not now, when?
If not now, when? And that was what.
No, the whole thing. If I'm only for myself, what is it? Am I only for myself? Who am I?
Right, yeah. And that was perfect because Stuart did not procrastinate and wait to wear the shirt today. So he actually was living that adage.
Oh, but he's so good at procrastination.
Good too. Now, another passage, not as famous, but can be attributed or connected to one man in Jewish history above all else. And this phrase comes from chapter 2. In a place where there are no worthy men, strive to be worthy. In a place where there are no worthy men, strive to be worthy. What character in Jewish history does this match more than any other? Give you a hint, biblical. In a place where there are no worthy men, strive to be worthy. For me, this hits with one man above all others, a guy named Noah. Noah, who lived in an age where every other person was seedy. You could also connect it to Lot, who was Abraham's nephew, who was living in Sodom. So in a world where everyone is misbehaving, behave. I like it. Actually, I like it that way better. I just made a new adage. Do not use that because I'm going right now to get that one that they patented. All right. In a place where everybody's misbehaving, behave. So, but this obviously works well with us today, and it's a wonderful piece to teach to children.
Mhm.
Because we have always well, he was doing that or she was doing that, and so I did it as well. You know, my daughter getting in trouble at school, or it wasn't my fault. They were doing it, so I did it with them. So this is a great lesson especially for kids, because unlike adults, kids in school are around other kids for like 8 hours straight every day. Like, we live our lives sometimes around people, sometimes in our office, but we don't live our lives huddled together with tons of other people in a room all day long. So for them, they have the opportunity to misbehave by following others, or to behave, and it makes it a lot harder for them because they're right in the middle of all this going on. Another one I really like: a person who acquires a good name has indeed acquired something for himself. Why is a good name so important? Anybody want to chime in here? I'll give you an example personally. So finally got in shape. I've been working out for 6 months to a year. Got my body back. So excited. And then I have to take an antibiotic. And for this antibiotic, I cannot work out for 3 weeks because you can do ligament damage with this antibiotic. So after months and months and months of getting in shape, how long does it take for my body to get out of shape? Like 1 week.
Yeah,
1 week.
it's good.
1 week not exercising, and I'm back to square one. 2 weeks, I'm below. In 3 weeks, I'll be below where I was before. And that is the same thing with a good name. It is so, once you get a good name, it really is hard to get and easy to lose. And if you can get yourself a good name, which does not come automatically, that really carries a lot of weight. It's like a credit score. You know, a good credit score doesn't make me money, but it can be very helpful if I need things in life. I need to buy a house or a car or get a loan. Now, it's good to have a good credit score, but it's easy to lose a good credit score. And so that's a good name in itself is very valuable. People respect you, people listen to you. And again, it's great for teaching kids, especially, obviously, because in classrooms, and you got 2 kids, and they get caught misbehaving, and one is punished severely, The other one gets off with a little bit of a wrist slap. And the one who gets punished severely is very upset. It's unfair. This person got a wrist slap. And so what might a teacher say or the principal? Well, I've looked at this record, and that kid, the other one, has never been in trouble. This is the first time ever. You, however, are in trouble all the time. It builds up. That kid has a good name. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. You, my friend, are acting up a lot. I got the proof here. This is just one after the other. And so he's going to get off because of this, and you are not. So a good name can carry us to a lot of places. People listen to people with a good name. Obviously, the exception is if you're a good athlete, you can have a bad name and still be respected, but that's a whole other thing. Now, as we go on, chapter 2 again, do God's will if your own. So, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm going to go to a different one. I don't want as much. Now, in a reference to Aaron, which is very rare, and they don't really reference the Kohanim, but they will reference Aaron, and I was wrong. I thought he wasn't referenced. He is here, so my mistake. Be amongst the students of Aaron, love peace and pursue peace, love people and bring them close to Torah. And so when we say love people and bring them close to Torah, it is a little different than in other religions. We're not trying to bring them to convert, we're bringing people to the idea of behaving. And so the idea is, where some religions believe they have to go out and convert people to their religion, we don't believe that, but what do we believe? We should go and convert people to being
Good people?
exactly better people, good people. So we don't convert people religiously. Well, people are welcome to join us, but we don't actively go out there and do it. But we are supposed to actively go out and help people behave. And that's by setting examples. There's a lot of different ways. Now, in the very beginning of Pirkei Avot, we see make a fence around the Torah, which is a very debated passage depending on your religious background. And it's looked at very differently between the movements. So if you look at the more orthodox movements, when they say make a fence around the Torah, what do they mean?
Is that the idea of building the Arabs?
One could be building the Eruv, which is giving us the right to do labor on Shabbat. And I think when you go deeper, the more traditional you are, the more your fence is a reality. It's more an actual fence. What do I mean? I fence my community away from the outside world. So Torah, because Torah needs to be within the Jewish world. I gotta keep it in here. I gotta keep the outside world away. So I'm gonna build an actual fence or a metaphoric fence that is not permeable. What does that mean? I socialize only with the people in my group. I go to meals only with the people in my group. I celebrate only with the people of the group. I may go to work and I'll work in the outside world. But once 5 o'clock hits, I'm on that bus back to my world. And my world is fenced in, keeping the outside world away, because the outside world has things that lead us astray. People are not Jewish. The internet, TV, novels, liberal Jews. People want to convert us away from Judaism, intermarriage. So in that world, the fence is very different than the fence we put around the Torah in our world. In our world, the fence is we need to study, we need to behave, but we can interact with other people while doing it. So our fence is very permeable. I go to churches, they come here, I interact with non-Jews. It is we still look at the same passage and we still believe in the same passage, put a fence around the Torah, but the interpretation is very different. And again, the more traditional you are, the more fenced off you are. And the more liberal you are, the less of a fence exists at all. So for us, we still believe we need to be in a Jewish community. That's our fence. We still need to study. We still need to celebrate together. But for other things, we go out. And again, how permeable your fence is depends a lot on where you live, what you do, and all that kind of stuff. And we may have mentioned this last time, but one of my favorite teachings for kids: keep far from an evil neighbor, do not befriend a wicked person, and don't despair of divine retribution. Okay, so my favorite is do not befriend a wicked person. Again, I like to use the analogy with kids. And let's take the same example of the one kid and the other kid. One kid is punished for the same crime at school, not a crime, but for the same, misbehavior. One kid is punished more than the other. Why? Well, let's look. This one kid who was punished more hangs out with a nefarious group of kids. They do graffiti, they smoke, they abuse, they do illegal things, they're bullies, they have, these are the kids who misbehave. And you are connected to them because they're your friends. So automatically, whether for right or wrong, I'm going to look at you as connected to them. Where this other kid hangs out with the students who are honor students or in the band and in sports and contribute to the school and don't get in trouble, I'm going to give that person a break because I see the people that this person hangs out with. So it's the same for kids and adults as well. Easier to teach kids because obviously they're in their social groups all day long. But if you see somebody who is hanging out with kids who misbehave, chances are, let's rephrase that. If you're hanging out with kids who misbehave all the time, chances are you are a kid who misbehaves. And if you hang out with kids who behave most of the time, chances are you behave most of the time as well. So keep wicked people away from you. And don't despair of divine retribution, which is also a great one for us, especially in the modern Jewish world, where we are taught to do something for the sake of doing it. God expects us to behave, so let's behave. The other thought would be behave because if you don't, God is going to smite you, which is a little bit more of what we find in the Torah, an earlier type of philosophy or writing. So by the time of the Mishnah, we're changing the way we look at things a little bit. It's not do it or else God's going to punish you. Do it because it's the right thing to do. And if you're expecting, don't do it for the reward of heaven, although it's always in the back of your mind. Do it because you're supposed to do it. And again, that has really become one of the tenets of Judaism. One who seeks to make his name great destroys it. Now, this can be taken in different ways. Obviously, people like Jonas Salk and Einstein, who became very famous intentionally. They may have not sought out fame, but you cure polio, you're going to be famous. You come up with the most important equation in human history, you're going to be famous. So, but generally the idea is if you're more concerned in making a name for yourself than being what type of person you need to be, there's going to be a problem. If you're more concerned with becoming important because you want to become important, as opposed to, I want to be the head of this company, help make my shareholders do well, to be good for the community. Again, I think we know what we're talking about here. But when we say make a name for yourself, we're not saying try and spend your whole life making yourself important. Sometimes you'll get there, sometimes you won't be as famous, but don't seek to make your name great or famous. And there's a balance there as well. And we're supposed to, what's the best way to donate money according to Maimonides?
Anonymously.
Anonymously. That's the best way. The highest level is to get somebody a job. Obviously, not everybody can do that. But anonymously is the best way to give money. However, that may not always be true. When is it not true? So Ron, what's an organization you like, you support?
We support St. Jude. We support Tunnels to Towers. We support the Shriners Children's Hospital.
All right, so let's take that for example. Let's do the Shriners Children. So Ron can donate anonymously to the Shriners Hospital. That's Maimonides saying is the best way to do it. However, there are exceptions. Ron is super famous. We all agree. He's a mensch, world famous, probably the most famous person of the 20th and 21st century.
I always tell that to Arlene.
That's right. There may be some competition with, maybe FDR, but besides FDR, Ron is the, so if Ron publicly gives money to St. Jude's, what may happen?
The halo effect, maybe? Is that what you call it?
Halo effect.
In other words, if it's good for Ron, it's good for me too.
Exactly. I may say, well, Ron's donating to St. Jude's, I'm going to just join the state. If Ron starts a fund at St. Jude's, I may start donating to that fund because I am so enamored with Ron. So he is not seeking to make his name great. He may have a great name. He's using his name for good purpose. Is that wrong? According to Maimonides, it's not the best way to do it, but in reality, it may be the best way to do it. And so when you say don't put, people say, some people, it's terrible that you put your name on a building or put plaques. Not always. Sometimes it's very helpful. If a very big industrialist or a well-known philanthropist starts donating money to a place, other people may join in. And so, again, there's always negotiating these. Now, some seem out of place today. Be wary regarding the ruling power, because they only befriend a person for their own purposes. They appear as friends when it suits them, but they do not stand by a man in his time of need. Now, when is this written? When the Romans are ruling Israel. So, again, or when somebody else was ruling. So, again, yes, be wary of a ruling power, but at this point in history, there was an election. So we should always be wary, but I think we would all agree today that there are some very good people who run and are in power, and there's some who are not so good. But I'm not putting every single elected or assigned official in the category where I don't trust them. It's like any other person. So again, that one doesn't work as well for So now for the one I use most often, and we'll conclude with this. Do not separate yourself from the community, and do not be sure of yourself until the day of your death. So my favorite is don't separate yourself from the community. Why is that so Jewish? Because as we see from the very beginning biblically, we are looked at as part of the community. The Bible speaks to the community. To be Jewish, you really need to be in a community of some sort. The size isn't, doesn't matter. But to be Jewish at your best is to be part of a community, is to have that connection. And that's what's so remarkable about the communities we're in. We're in several Jewish communities probably, but they're all meaningful to us. So find your Jewish community, find a connection that fits you. And I think that's something that's a moral imperative for all of us. So that's just some of Pirkei Avot. Again, there's a lot. There's stuff like reduce your business activities and occupy yourself with Torah. So don't put all your time into business, study. Find somebody to be your teacher. Be careful in observing minor commandments, just like you would observe major commandments. Don't judge somebody until you
Walked in their shoes.
Walked in their shoes, stood in their place. Exactly. So the main thing, it's important to study, but the main thing is doing. So again, don't be quick to anger. Some of these are very famous, but they're all meaningful. Again, these are little pieces of wisdom. So if you go online, or I have copies, you can find them online. You can find them in book form with have commentaries. There's a lot of commentaries on Pirkei Avot. Probably Maimonides is the most famous, but there's a lot of them through the ages, even modern ones as well. And some of them, I know there's some that really, some are great, some are not, but it's a wonderful way just to pick yourself up and to find something that, is helpful. Any thoughts or questions before we conclude? All right. If you want a good one, an Orthodox one, Samson Raphael Hirsch had a really good one, and there's a lot of Reform ones as well. Now, as for other things going on, in case you missed it, the Temple Got Talent was beyond amazing, like seriously amazing. We have it online. You have to pay, for anybody who paid, we're sending online, but if you want to see it, just let me know and I'll send you the link. Jonathan, Rab, and Tony have remarkable voices, and they did a Man of La Mancha that was just fabulous between the two of them. Billy Hester, who was on Broadway, came and wrote a song to me, Rabbi of the Rising Fund, based upon the animals. Unbelievable, just really tremendous. We had a Borscht Belt comedian, Larry Allen, who was actually the masseuse for Lenny Tischberg. He was a comedian from the late 50s to the early 70s until his wife said, I'm done with traveling. They were traveling like 40. So then he went and became part of the customs official for the government, retired, became a masseuse, hadn't performed in 10 years. It came on, was hilarious. And again, if you're 85 and a Borscht Belt comedian, even in a sanctuary, you can straddle the border of rated R.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But he was good though. Really
he was
good.
hilarious, and he straddled it well. So he
Yeah.
did a great job. Old Borscht Belt comedian was fabulous. We had one of our students did sax, which was remarkable. The choir sang, which was great.
It was very good.
It was amazing. So we're probably going to do it at least one more year. We raised like $4,000 for the music fund, so that's going to be great. But now, as for upcoming Saturday morning, obviously, Women of Mikveh Israel Service. We do it every year on Mother's Day's weekend. Happy Mother's Day also. So please join us. Again, it's wonderful to have the women come and lead our service. Michelle Frank will be reading Torah. I just forgot who's giving the sermon this year. Jennifer gave it. I don't remember who's giving the sermon, but it's always really a beautiful service. And also coming up, not this weekend, but the next weekend is our weekend retreat. The overnight stay is booked, but you come in for the day, come for the whole Saturday. It is so much fun. We have programs all day long, alternative services. Jonathan Rabb's going to lead a writing course. We're going to do improv. There's going to be games. Friday night, if you feel comfortable coming on Friday night, we're going to have a rockin' Shabbat with a band, adding a sax player as we speak. That should be amazing. On May 20, I think it's the 28th.
Yes,
My-
28th.
28th. Again, I have forgotten who we're honoring for the Women of Valor this year. I keep just slipping my mind, but that is going to be an awesome event. I was kidding. Mazel tov to Arlene, who deservedly, alongside Sheila Weinberg, who is ailing. Send our prayers to her for healing. Are both going to be getting it at our annual events. The men, any men who want to come and volunteer, we're looking for 10 to 15 men to be ushers. It's a lot of fun to be an usher. I've done it many times. I'll be doing it again this year. And then lastly, on June 1st, we have Shavuot. And we're going to be doing something a little different this year. So Shavuot is traditionally, of course, when you have the study thing at night, we'll still have that. We're going to have a big program right before Shavuot. So Shavuot dinners at 6, service at 7, study sessions start at 8. At 5 o'clock, though, we're going to have a special program on Jewish values and international aid. You know, what we can do to still help internationally. We're going to have Larry Silverman, a former U.S. ambassador, come speak. Maurice Middleberg, the former international aid worker. They're going to be their 2 speakers and talk about the Jewish value of giving to others in other countries. And again, it'll be publicized soon. It'll get out, but that's not doing that. We're doing that at 5, so people can do that, stay for dinner if they want. Dinner it's a paid dinner, but everything else is free. There'll be nosh before the program. You can come and then drive back, even if you don't want to come to services or stay late for the study session. So that should be a really amazing thing. That'll be June 1st, Sunday, June 1st. Any other thoughts or questions?
I just wanted to tell you that Paul and I are going away for the rest of the May. So I congratulate Arlene and Sheila. We won't be able to be, we're going to Europe. So we'll be back June 1st.
Where are you going again? I forgot.
We're going to Prague, Vienna, and Budapest.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Have a wonderful trip.
Thank you, thank
Well,
you.
I won't see you for 2 months because Stuart and I are leaving for Europe June 2nd. So
Oh, where are you going?
we're going, doing 2 cruises, the British Isles and then another back-to-back, the Norwegian fjords.
Oh, great.
Nice.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, but we did the trip you're doing 2 years ago.
Yeah,
so
yeah, you did.
Yeah.
It was great. It was
Yeah.
beautiful. Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Safe
Texas
travels.
for a week. It doesn't
Oh,
sound the
well.
same.
Sounds exciting.
know.
Europe for a month, Texas for a week.
But when we were, I don't know, I can't speak for others. When I was still working, that was my life. I went to
True.
whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
Now it's like that was the idea of retiring when we did, was to be able to still do all this. So.
That's right. Until we can. Right.
Until we can't. Exactly.
And I tell
Exactly.
people, if you have kids in your
Yeah,
50s,
Karen,
you retire differently.
Karen,
Yes, sir.
that's a wonderful trip you're going on. Ollie and I did that, and it's marvelous.
Yeah. Yeah. We're excited. We're looking
You and
forward to it.
Stuart should have a great
Yeah, we're
trip.
so happy for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. We will. We will.
You
Yeah.
all have a wonderful time, Karen.
Thank you.
Well, have a great, We'll see. I'll see you a few times.
And a
before
reminder,
then.
though, next Wednesday, don't have class. My annual physical, the doctor couldn't make my date, so that was the only day I could get. So I didn't
Okay.
run. So it's we won't have a class next week.
Oh, no class next week?
No.
Right, no class. And again, it was not intentional. I had a doctor's annual physical. They couldn't get it, and I didn't want to wait 3 or 4 more weeks. And so that was
No,
my-
absolutely. Absolutely. You
Thank
need a break.
guys, for joining us. So thank
Okay.
you again
Bye, everyone.
to David.
Thank
you.
Eva,
David,
Same.
have a good time in England and, have a
Well, I'll
safe.
see you before that, Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sheila, when are you leaving, Eva?
We're leaving the 13th, so yesterday a
coming up.
week. So we should be there a week from now.
Well, if we don't see you, have a wonderful trip. Enjoy every minute of it, you guys.
Thank you, thank you.
And thank you for joining us. So we'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you
Bye.
again, and have a wonderful week, and we will see you in 2 weeks. on the Wednesday
Everybody,
class
have-
that shall
be
not
well.
be. Thanks, Ron, and mazel tov to Sheila again.
Yeah, bye.
Bye,
And
guys.
to Arlene. Yeah.
And to Arlene. That's
I knew
funny
what you, we knew what you
Sheila
meant.
Yeah.
is not there.
Right.